Hey guys, tonight we're dimming the lights, grabbing a cup of something warm, preferably not rationed tea from 1942, and floating back into a time when bedtime came with a siren. This is the story of ordinary people living extraordinary lives underground, literally. It's about nights spent in basements, subway tunnels, and makeshift shelters while the world above quietly disintegrated under the weight of exploding metal. So, get comfortable. Let's drift back to the early 1940s, when every sunset meant someone, somewhere, was double-checking their blackout curtains and praying the neighbor remembered to do the same. The calm before the Blitz. Before the bombs came, London was surprisingly calm. Not cheerful, this was Britain on the brink of another war after all, but calm in that classic British way of pretending everything is fine when absolutely nothing is fine. In 1939, when war was declared, people were issued gas masks, ration books, and a vague sense of dread. Posters went up everywhere. Keep calm and carry on. Which, by the way, almost nobody actually saw during the war. Those posters weren't really used. They were printed and stored, waiting for Britain to fall. Which it didn't. Because, well, stubbornness is a national pastime. So, by mid-1940, life was oddly normal. Until it wasn't. The first raids. September 7th, 1940. That's when the sky decided to get dramatic. German bombers filled the air over London in what became known as the Blitz, a cheerful little abbreviation of the German word Blitzkrieg, or lightning war. It sounds fast and exciting, but for civilians, it meant long, sleepless nights and slow, terrifying mornings. At first, people did what humans always do. They tried to carry on. They went to work, queued for bread, their children, and complained about the weather, all while pretending the world wasn't literally falling apart above them. When the first sirens wailed, many didn't take them seriously. Some even went outside to watch, because of course they did. It's human nature to stare at danger like it's a mildly inconvenient fireworks show. Underground kingdoms. Soon, though, the reality hit, loudly and repeatedly. Entire neighborhoods were flattened overnight. Windows shattered for miles. Streets disappeared under rubble and dust. And so began one of the strangest social experiments in modern history, the underground life. Thousands of Londoners started spending their nights in the London Underground stations. Those long, echoing tunnels that had carried commuters now carried mattresses, blankets, and generations of sleepless families. If you picture it romantically, candlelight flickering, people singing softly to pass the time, you wouldn't be entirely wrong. But it also smelled like a mix of damp coats, unwashed socks, and fear. Families carved out territories in the tunnels. Some painted little signs, the Johnson's Corner, or Mind the Gap, please don't step on the baby. Volunteers distributed cocoa and biscuits, while others organized sing-alongs to keep spirits up. And occasionally, someone would bring a gramophone, because nothing says defiance like dancing to scratchy jazz beneath a city on fire. The routine of disaster. What's remarkable, and slightly disturbing, is how quickly people adapted. After the first few weeks, air raids became part of the schedule. Wake up, go to work, get bombed, sleep underground, repeat. Newspapers printed bomb schedules as casually as weather forecasts. Expect heavy rain in the morning, scattered showers in the evening, and a few hundred incendiaries over East London tonight, showing off their shrapnel collections like baseball cards. And because childhood resilience is terrifyingly powerful, they learned to sleep through explosions the way most of us sleep through traffic noise. The spirit of "we're fine, honestly." Now, the British government called it the Blitz spirit, a sort of collective stoicism that turned panic into politeness. When houses were destroyed, neighbors offered tea before asking if anyone was hurt. When someone lost everything, they'd shrug and say, "Well, could have been worse." And if you were particularly unlucky, you might find yourself on fire, at which point someone would calmly pat you with a blanket and offer you a cigarette. There's an almost absurd heroism in it.
Not the cinematic kind, but the quiet, exhausted kind. The kind that refuses to cry because the kettle's still whistling and there's no sense wasting good water on tears. Blackout Britain. Meanwhile, up above, the entire country went dark. Blackout regulations were no joke. Every window had to be covered, every light dimmed, every car headlamp shaded. It turned cities into shadow worlds, eerie, silent, punctuated only by the distant thrum of planes and the occasional drunk who walked into a lamppost. Police patrolled the streets, shouting at people whose curtains leaked even a sliver of light. And yes, people were fined for showing a glow. Because apparently, during wartime, the most dangerous thing you could do was have cozy lighting. The darkness had strange effects. Crime dropped in some places, spiked in others. Couples met and fell in love in pitch-black streets, which might explain a post-war baby boom or two. When home wasn't safe. For all the gallows humor, the truth was grim. The bombs didn't discriminate. Rich or poor, church or pub, everyone was fair game. The hardest-hit areas were the working-class neighborhoods near the docks. Families of 10 huddled in Anderson shelters, small corrugated metal huts buried in the garden, which were technically bomb-proof. Unless, of course, the bomb landed on top of them. Yet, people trusted them anyway, because when your choices are hide in a hole or hope for the best, the hole suddenly looks pretty appealing. The smell of damp earth, the creak of metal, the rumble of distant bombs, it all became part of the nightly lullaby. Dig for victory and other optimistic lies. By 1941, the government decided morale needed a boost. So came the propaganda campaigns. Dig for victory, make do and mend, careless talk costs lives. Essentially, grow your own vegetables, fix your socks, and stop gossiping. Because apparently, Jerry the German spy might be hiding behind your begonias. It sounds silly now, but it worked. People clung to these slogans like lifelines. They planted gardens in bomb craters, patched clothes until they looked like patchwork art, and kept smiling, mostly out of spite. Because if you can't defeat fascism, you can at least outlast it. Music, tea, and mild denial. Amid the chaos, entertainment continued. Dance halls reopened, cinemas ran films between raids, and the BBC broadcast cheerful news segments that sounded like they'd been recorded from another planet. Songs like We'll Meet Again by Vera Lynn became emotional armor. She was called the Force's sweetheart, but honestly, she was everyone's sweetheart. Her voice carried more comfort than 1,000 gas masks. Tea was the national antidepressant. No matter how bad things got, someone, somewhere, always had a kettle boiling. If your house was reduced to rubble, someone would hand you a cup and say, "Milk, sugar, sorry about your roof."
Adapting to fear. After months of raids, fear changed shape. It stopped being sharp and panicky and became something duller, like background noise. People started judging nights by the sound of explosions. Oh, that one's far off. That one's close. That one, never mind. Pets adapted too. Dogs barked less, cats didn't bother hiding. Even pigeons seemed to time their flights around the sirens, because survival, apparently, is teachable. There were jokes, of course. Endless dark humor. If the bomb hits, duck and cover. It makes identification easier. Or, if your shelter collapses, remember, at least you won't have to clean it tomorrow. It was morbid, but it kept people sane. Floating toward the next disaster. By the time 1941 rolled around, the Blitz had killed over 40,000 civilians in Britain. And yet life, stubborn, ridiculous life, went on. Factories kept producing, buses kept running, children kept going to school, sometimes in classrooms with no windows, and people still fell in love, got married, and argued about who stole the last piece of Spam. That's the strange part about living through catastrophe. It's never as cinematic as it sounds. It's quieter, slower. It's just people trying to have a normal day when normal no longer exists. Let's float, gently, to the next city. Because London wasn't alone in this. Germany, Japan, and dozens of other places lived their own versions of nights under the falling skies. We'll drift there next time, where the bombs fell in reverse and the civilians spoke German, but the fear and the cocoa were exactly the same.